The deal is
giving the
never
chair.
done until it's done. The deal is never done until it's done.
Sometimes you talk to a realtor and you just think like, how on earth did you do that? And today I'm talking to someone who I had that question for. So today I'm with Katie Dabo, and she is with Coldwell Banker in Connecticut and Rhode Island, from what I understand.
Mhm.
And you became the agent of record for one of the first new condo developments that's been put up in your town in 20 years, but a town that's been around for hundreds of years. How did you do that? Because I think every realtor on planet Earth would just die to be kind of the agent for a luxury condo building in their hometown. So, Kate, welcome to the show and tell us how you did it.
Well, thank you. I'm very happy to be here. This is very exciting. Um, it was a process. I mean, it's not just like it was one phone call, it was a process. I was in the market for a long time. I've been, well, let me back up. I've been a residential real estate agent for 5 years, but I've been an agent. I started in commercial for 30 years. So I had a background. I had a lot of credentials. I've done a lot of renovations. You know, People sort of know who I am in the town just because of that. But I found out about the project and it sounded so exciting and so cool. And I work with a phenomenal company right in the center of West Hartford Center. And I happen to have a phenomenal manager that I discussed it with. And, I just said, this is something we just really have to pitch and we really have to go for. And we set up a meeting and we pled our case. I mean, basically, we asked for the listing. We gave them all of the compelling reasons why Coldwell Banker in their luxury group would be a phenomenal fit. We showed them that everything that Coldwell Banker could do for them from a corporate side, which I think is very important. If you're going for a big listing, you have to really leverage your company's assets. And then also, I just talked about myself, my experience, how I would approach helping them achieve their goals. And I just think I had the right combinations of skill set. And it just, we sort of, there was, we hit it off and that's what happened. And then we negotiated the deal and we put it together. I mean, it's just, and we work collaboratively. It's about to start construction. We've worked collaboratively on this for about a year. We've been in the reservation phase for about a year. We're about 30% reserved already, and we don't even have a shovel on the ground.
So, at what point did you? So, obviously, number one, you mentioned this when we were talking offline, but number one, you asked, like, you saw
Mhm,
something you wanted, and you said, "Well, I'm going to go for this." So that's like
mhm.
probably for most realtors out there, that's half the battle, is that they're just not asking, right?
90% of the battle. There's a lot that you have to ask for what you want. I mean, I just think, just in general in life, you have to be direct and you have to ask for what you want. When you're going for a listing appointment, you have to ask for your listing fee. When you're with a buyer, you have to ask a buyer to pay your fee to represent them. You have to ask for what you want. And anybody can show houses. I mean, you can open a door and show a house and give them your advice, but you have to eventually ask them, is this the house for you? Do you want to put in an offer? You have to ask. And I have to say, that's not a small thing. It's in the beginning when you first start, it's intimidating to do that. You know what I mean? It's just intimidating because, you are the expert and sometimes it can just be very intimidating to be direct and say, you have to ask. I have to ask my clients, are you ready to buy? That's another question agents have to ask. Are you ready to buy? Or if I'm meeting a seller, are you ready to sell? These are big questions.
I mean, that's a huge question because if you don't ask the question, you're in essence wasting your own time and their time, and you're not like
Yes.
serving yourself. I think
Yeah.
when we think about why is a realtor worth that commission and that fee,
Right.
it's because they know what questions to ask and what
Right.
moves to make depending on the answers to those. But you went for you found. I want to know the order of this development. So where was this development in, like, progress wise in the news? Like, how did you find out about it, and then like how at what stage were they in when you asked, like, when is
Well,
the
it was
right
in the news.
time?
It was in the news because it took 7 years to get approved, and it had gotten approved.
Okay, so
Had
it
gotten
basically it was a for you didn't go for it till it was a sure thing, but then as soon as it was a sure thing, you pounced. Now, like, what are the what are the job titles of the people that you're going after when you want to get something like this? Like, if I find out there's a new condo development coming in the news, like, who am I calling?
Well, the people that I met with are actually the owners. There
Okay.
three owners, and the people that I met with are actually the owners of the property. So I would say if you're going for a listing, you should be meeting with the principals of the property for sure, unless they have designated people that speak on their behalf. But that's who you should be calling if you're going after, let's say, a new construction build. If there's, you should be looking for and meeting with the principals. But I had heard that they were interviewing agents for the project. And so we just basically wanted to throw our hat in the ring and tell them, why our company, myself and our company, would be the best fit. And we just made our case for why we would be the best fit. And, how hard we would work for them, what we would do for them, and how much money we would make them.
I love that. I mean, at the end of the day, like you know how to talk to investors, but I mean, your style. I mean, you have not only the understanding of how to talk investments and money because of your experience in commercial, but you also understand the design. How do you think those two things lend themselves towards your ability to serve clients?
Well, because, there's an old saying, you can do anything with money, right? So if you don't care and you want to spend as much money as possible, you can always have the nicest house on the block. But that is really not too many of my buyers, you know what I mean? Or my sellers. So you have to be able to figure out what you want to do with a house and what it's going to cost you. So where my value comes in, and I would think, is that I can walk into a house with a buyer, and because I have a history of renovation and a history of construction and a history of design, I can say, if you move this wall and you open up this and you put the kitchen over here, you'll get more light in and you can put a mudroom over there. And this is what it's going to cost you. So let's take a look at that, and let's take a look at the purchase price. And then let's take a look at how much you're willing to spend. And let's look at the market and make sure that it makes sense. It makes sense. You know what I mean? I mean, that's the thing. I mean, and I can do that with an investor. I can walk into a house and I can say, if we do this and this and this is the kind of return you can expect if we put it back on the market. Because an investor is really only concerned for the most part about their return. What is my risk? What is my return? Is it worth it? You know what I
Well,
mean?
I think that makes so much sense because that's what people want from kind of like Realtor 2.0, right?
Mhm.
So sometimes there's people that they just want to find a house that they can afford or they know exactly what
Right,
home they want.
right.
But 2.0 is like kind of the reality for today's buyer in most markets. I mean, like where I am, we still have no inventory and no hope of more inventory coming just because,
Right,
we're
right,
landlocked. And
right.
so almost everybody is either spending millions of dollars on a new build where they're picking everything they want, but they're sacrificing on the location,
Hmm.
or they find a home in the location they want to, but then they have to work with a realtor to figure out what renovations are we going to make, how are we going to get this done, and especially when you're not familiar with the type of housing stock in that certain market, that's where you need a realtor that understands the cost of all these things and the rules. I mean, you have a lot of experience in that, in especially in your areas because you grew up there. You've
Hmm.
how many homes have you flipped over the past 25, 30 years?
I mean, I've probably flipped 10.
10 homes, but like
Probably.
you've probably learned a lot about the
I've learned a lot
intricacies
about
of
construction.
homes.
I've learned a lot about construction. I can tell you that. And actually, it's baptism by fire in my case. And it's one of the reasons I've actually never personally built new construction because I'm much better with renovation. I'm much better walking into a space, seeing the walls, and envisioning what the next space could look like. I'm much better at that than looking at a blueprint. You know what I mean? So, but I've learned a lot about old homes, what the pitfalls are, what the costs are, how much money you need to put behind the walls that no one ever sees. That if you don't do the cosmetic stuff, you'll lose your shirt because nobody really understands, your wiring, your insulation, the heating. If your kitchen looks terrible, they're not going to really give you your money back for all of that other stuff. But it's all very, very necessary. You have to do it. I mean, you have to make sure your foundation is strong. I mean, I took an 1860 lake house and I lifted the house up. That had the foundation of the house was built on boulders. So we lifted it up and we put a whole new foundation underneath the house. If I hadn't made that house shiny like a new penny, nobody would have ever paid me back for the foundation. So
Right.
you have
Well,
to
it's one
make
of those things that people don't think about, right?
sure.
Like, so you have to obviously just to pass the friggin' inspection, you have to do all that behind the scenes stuff. But like what you're saying is that no one values that after the fact
Very few.
if the
Very
basics,
few.
like if the
Mhm.
appliances are gross and if the kitchen and the bathrooms
Right.
aren't nice.
Very few, because it's a visual business, right? I mean, it's a visual business. So, and everything has to look good. It's why agents will stage a house. It's why we'll tell sellers to paint their house a certain color. You know what I mean? It's a visual business. And it's why, builders keep updating their plans and their tile and the window colors change from white to black. It's a visual business. It's a visual business. And you have to, if you're going to do a renovation, unless you're going to live there forever and just do it as you go, which I have clients that do that too. But if you're doing it to finish it or flip it or sell it in 5 years, you need to make sure you have enough money in the till to finish. Otherwise, you might get, you might be upside down on the house. And that is not a good feeling in a hot market when everybody else is making money.
Yeah, I mean, in essence, the
Yeah.
people losing money in this market are oftentimes losing it because it's their
Yeah.
own fault, because of some type of
Yeah.
oversight, or because they worked with an inexperienced realtor who didn't educate them
Hmm.
on all of these types of things. And so,
Hmm.
my guess here is that a lot of clients that you've worked with in the past probably come back to you because
Hmm.
they want your expertise when it comes to should I design it, should I love it, or list it, basically.
Yeah.
And
Right. Exactly.
that can be great. I mean, like everyone's seen the HGTV show, but I think people want that in a realtor, but it's not really the service that most realtors are offering.
Well, there are a lot of realtors out there, to be honest with you, that have a lot of skill sets just like that. But it is, I think personally, I mean, I think it's a necessary service to offer because it's just part of the process. I mean, my big thing is, you know, it's a process to buy a house. You have to understand the mortgage process. You have to understand the contracts. You have to understand the construction, the houses, the inspection, the closing, the legal ramifications. It's a process, and you need to be a shepherd for your buyer or your seller through the process.
I
And
love that.
you're better off giving them all of this information for them to contemplate, because they're going to find it out. At least they should know early, and they'll be better informed, and they'll make a better decision, and they'll be a happy buyer and happy seller, which is what everybody wants.
Well, I want to talk about your first experience flipping because you kind of made me laugh when we were chatting earlier. You, at the age of 28, bought a
With my husband.
10,000
Yes.
square foot house. I mean,
Yes.
it's absolutely gigantic. Like, I mean, most people don't have houses that big even in their area.
It
But you bought
literally,
it because you said you looked at it and only needed paint. So why not invest a bunch of money, probably everything you had, in buying a gigantic mansion of a home? Tell me the story. I got to hear it.
well, I didn't even tell you the first part of the story, which was, so I lived in a house in Southington, Connecticut, and it looked exactly like the Brady Bunch house. And it just wasn't my style. I had just gotten married. It was my husband's house. And then we were going to buy, again, because of new construction, we were going to buy a piece of land in West Hartford, Connecticut, because I had always wanted to move to West Hartford. And we were in the process of designing that house when this house came along. And what I first tried to do was swap. I tried to do a land swap. I tried to swap into the property so that they would take my land and give me that house. But that didn't work out. So then my husband and I ended up purchasing the house. And I think I probably led with, I think it just needs paint. It was built in 1908. We were only the third people to own it. It was 10,000 square feet. It had 3,000 square feet of porches on the outside. It was all cypress, which I didn't know this at the time, but it's actually you can't use cypress anymore. It's a protected species of wood, but it was all cypress on the outside. So there was not like a drop of rot on the outside of the house. It was unbelievable. It had it had a roof that needed to be replaced. It was 100 years old, and I thought it just needed paint. And
And a roof.
and no, actually, at the time, I didn't think it needed a new roof. I literally thought we could just paint it. 4 years later, with a full crew of people, with my husband and I living in the little apartment above the garage with our border collie Ellie, we were done. We were done. It was magnificent. It's actually a mansion. I would say it rivals some of the mansions in Newport, Rhode Island. It's spectacular. It was, it was, it was just unbelievable. It was on 8 acres of land, all manicured gardens and lawns. I had no idea what it cost or what it took to maintain that level of property, but I found out. And we redid everything, kitchens, bathrooms. I had a guy come in. I think it had over 100 windows in the house. I had a guy come in, take out all the windows, put in new double pane glass insulated windows with the old frames, put it back. I mean, he was working on the windows, I think, for months, like 4 months, 5 months, 6 months. We had all the paint removed outside and had it repainted. I mean, it just was unbelievable,
I
honestly.
mean, you literally, it's like a trial by fire when it comes to figuring out how to flip a house, how to reimagine a home. Would you say that like you got a lot of attention after that that kind of helped catapult you in
Yes,
your eventual career in real
yes.
estate? Because that's a pretty big that's a pretty
It,
big project.
it was huge. In fact, we were in the newspaper for saving the house. It was unbelievable. And so through that process, yes, everybody I knew, every family member, everybody I knew would come over and see the project, see how it was coming out. And it was just spectacular. It was gorgeous. I mean, you couldn't not pay attention to it. It was absolutely stunning. And a beautiful porte cochere. I didn't even know what a porte cochere was before I bought that house.
Well, now I have no idea. I've probably done 100 of these podcasts. I don't know what a port. I've been to France, but I don't know what a port cochere is. So please educate me.
So you drive underneath it and stop. It was for the old, like, so that you were covered when you went to the front door, so that your chauffeur
Kind of like a
would
valet
open
stand.
the door and drop you off at the front door. Remember, it was a mansion, and so that you would not have to be in the rain when you got out of your car. It was
Obviously.
it was spectacular. It was spectacular.
Did you just like put on a fur coat every day and like
No,
drive your
I
Rolls
was
Royce in?
often
No.
no, I was often confused with the gardener.
Yeah.
Yes, I was often confused with the gardener. And
'Cause you
people,
were always gardening because it was a 8 acre property.
it was crazy. I was always in some overalls gardening. My border collie was running around town. It was really funny. All my friends were in their late 20s. We were having bonfires. It was crazy. So, but honestly, like it was probably 1,000 feet from the road. So I learned the cost of a driveway because we had 1,000 feet. And I learned that it's really expensive to pave 1,000-foot driveway. So we did a gravel driveway, which actually looked beautiful and it sounded beautiful. But then I realized that it was it was almost like a little monument. People would come up on the property unannounced that didn't live there and would just start walking around like they were on a tour. And so then we installed a driveway bell. So when you drove over a certain spot in the driveway, a bell would go off in the house to alert you that someone was on the property. So then I could go out and say, I don't think if you knew this, but this actually is someone's home. So it's not really a historic site or a tourist attraction.
That's
So
amazing. Well, so realistically, the bigger the house, obviously, the more that it costs to maintain.
yeah,
How do you have that conversation with buyers and sellers right now? Because we all see the shiny object and think it's a great idea, and you don't want to be the realtor that like kills their dreams. But like, if I bought a house from you and then like a year later I'm going bankrupt, you didn't do me any favors. So like,
yes.
I mean, you obviously didn't go bankrupt from buying this house, but you didn't
We
keep it.
actually made a lot of money. We
Yeah,
actually
you
made
actually
a
made
lot
a
of
lot of money. But like, what less? I mean, I know like they say that half the reason the Vanderbilts lost their wealth was that they built all these amazing properties that they couldn't afford to maintain.
Well, because like I said earlier, my father-in-law, very wise guy, he was also in real estate. And he said to me, I love the house. It's great. But, remember, it's not the purchase price, it's the maintenance cost. And he was right. It was a lot to maintain that property. It's very expensive to heat a 10,000 square foot house. It's very expensive to clean and do the windows and mow the lawn. And I mean, it took like 8 hours to mow the lawn. I mean, it was
You didn't have an AI robot doing the lawn for
no, I
you.
actually bought a tractor because I thought we would do it. And I did it once and then I hired a lawn service.
Yeah,
And then I
which is
just
I
drove
think
my nieces and nephews around on the tractor for fun.
yeah, I mean that sounds like the vibe. But how do you have that conversation now with clients? Like you're working with a client, you see the house that they want, they have the sparkle in their eyes.
Hmm.
And then it comes time for the real conversation about like, what is this going to look like a year from now? Like, how do you do that?
Very directly. I just say, let's talk about what you want to spend. Let's talk about how big of a mortgage you want. Let's talk about the taxes, because the taxes are a huge situation here. Let's talk about the taxes. Let's talk about, and it depends on the buyer, because some buyers are very, very sophisticated and they've figured all of it out in any price range. I always have some buyers that know almost as much as I do before we even start. And I don't have to have those conversations because they already bring it up with me and they're already saying check, 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 just making sure. But, I'll talk about the mortgage. I'll talk about the cost of the mortgage, the cost of your down payment, the cost of your taxes, your insurance. And then if it's a big house, I'll say, let's get the heating bills. Let's see what the heating bills look like here. This is what I think based on my experience it's going to cost you to maintain the outside of this house. Because I've had sales fall through because the outside exterior maintenance bill was so high because it was such a complicated exterior that people just don't want to spend that kind of money on that. It wasn't important to them. Some people do, some people don't. But I try to run through the numbers to give people realistic expectations when they're looking at a house, because I don't like my buyers. I try to mitigate their disappointment as much as humanly possible because the process is just inherently stressful and I don't want to add any more stress. I feel like knowledge is power. If you go into a situation informed, you can adjust your expectations and, go from there. I don't
Well,
want, that's personally, I mean, I kind of learned everything, like I said, baptism by fire, that I kind of like learned everything the hard way. I really don't want my buyers to have to learn everything the hard way.
yeah, and that's the value that you're offering, right? I mean, there's
Yeah.
thousands of realtors that these clients could choose
Yeah.
from, but
Yeah.
when they work with you, they get someone who's already been through these situations before. And
Yeah.
I kind of want to mention, so for people listening, so far you might think that Kate only does, $1 million properties, 10,000 square foot homes. Like the average price of a home in your area is like, what, it's under,
High fives.
median's under
Right. Like
$600,000.
high fives. Yes. I
High
mean,
five.
I sold a house last week for almost $3 million, and I have a house under contract for 450,000. I sell. Buyers are buyers, sellers are sellers. I mean, I love, like I said, I love houses. I love houses. I mean, my biggest problem is I always want to buy all these houses that I'm selling other people. It's kind of a problem. But I love houses. So, and I love helping people, and I like to see people happy and get what they want. And I'm always circling back to my buyers and saying, show me what you did. I want to see what you did. Send me a picture. So,
You share in their excitement. I mean, that's
yeah,
how
yeah,
most realtors don't communicate after the fact. Like, if anyone listening is writing for like is looking for an easy write this down moment, I think that's it. It's send a follow up to your clients 3 months after and find out, hey,
mhm,
what have you done to the house? Send me a picture. Like, how
yeah,
did you decorate that room? I can't wait to see how that room turned out. Like,
mhm,
be interested in their life,
mhm.
and they will then know that you care and hopefully use you again.
Well,
And
plus, I mean, we're such an integral part of their life for that period of time that they're looking at the house that sometimes it's a little bit of a letdown when they move or they purchase. I mean, I'm like, oh, I'm not really going to see you anymore. Oh, we had so much fun. So, I like to stay in touch with all of my buyers and sellers and see what's up with them. And a lot of times they will call me and ask me my opinion of something. I'm always happy, just like I'm on this show, I'm always happy to offer my opinion. And I just think it's just, I always say to somebody renovating, everything in the room does not have to be expensive. Pick the important things. Those can, if you want to spend more money on that, but everything in the room doesn't have to be expensive. You can design and decorate, a house and do it, some of it inexpensively. You don't have to like break the bank on absolutely everything.
Well, and there's things that like, you have to make sure you're not cheaping out. Like you mentioned, like you flipped a home and it was on a bad foundation. You had to obviously fix that, which cost a
Mhm,
fortune. But then
mhm.
you didn't skimp out on the kitchen and the bathroom because that's what
Yeah.
buyers are looking at, right?
Right. No, I would always say like don't never skimp out on your kitchen cabinets because you use them all day every day. You should have some solid, well-built kitchen cabinets because if you get cheap kitchen cabinets, they won't last and you'll end up ripping them out, doing it over again, and that costs a lot of money. So if you're going to spend money on something, spend money on your kitchen cabinets. But obviously, like your plumbing, your electrical, I mean, that's all pretty standard. Your roof obviously needs to be of quality. Any work to your foundation. But I'm talking about like cosmetic stuff. Like you can really make a room look phenomenal with white subway tile. I mean,
Right.
you can't believe what you can do with white subway tile. You can't believe what you can do with white paint. I always tell my sellers the return on investment on painting is like 1,000%. It's the it's the biggest bang for your buck. If you just paint, you can't believe the difference in the price that you'll get, because people will walk in and they'll be like, "Oh, this house looks great." Because remember, the average buyer is only in a house for about 15 minutes before they decide to make an offer on your house. That's it. That's all the time they get to decide to live there for the next 5, 10, 20, 30 years. They get 15 minutes usually. And there's
That's
a bidding
amazing.
war, and then that's it. So
I mean,
make your house look as great as you can for that 15 minutes. They should have a fantastic experience for that 15 minutes. And then I say, keep it going through the inspection. Don't like dismantle everything, because when they come back for the inspection, they're in there for 3 to 4 hours. So it has to look good for the inspection. I know it's exhausting for the sellers, but keep it going for the inspection. And then, when you have the walkthrough at the end, make sure that house is crystal clean. Clean that house, clean the refrigerator, clean the stove, make sure it's clean. Leave them a nice note, leave them a bottle of wine. Make it a positive experience. This person just walked into your house. They've just made probably the biggest purchase of their lives. It should be a very positive, feel good moment. Do anything you can to make that happen. And
well,
that to me is
it's so
just
interesting because so many people, like the minute they get that offer under contract, like they're done and they're moving on. But that's actually the most important part. It's like you got
Mhm.
the fish on the hook. Now you need to reel it in, and you don't want to give the buyers or the sellers a reason to walk away from that sale.
Never.
I think
Yeah,
too
exactly.
many realtors are off to the next thing, and they're not
Yep.
really
The deal is
giving the
never
care.
done until it's done. The deal is never done until it's done.
And sometimes until 2 or 3 days after it's done. But
Yeah.
in general, that's it. Just well, Kate, thank
Yes.
you so much for the advice today. So, I mean, you've used your design expertise as well as your sales ability to do over $30 million a year in sales in a normal price point market. I mean, what's next for you? Like, what do the next couple of years look like for you?
Oh, what is next for me? More. That's what's next for me. More. My team is gearing up in Rhode Island. I'm really excited to be working with a builder that's going to start putting some luxury product on the market in Newport. That's very exciting because I think we're going to be really successful and then sought after. I want to do more flips, because I really like that process. And I have a great build partner to do that with, who makes it fun. And like that's the thing. More of the same, but what I love to do, and just continue the fun, because
I love it. I mean, I could tell that you love what you do. So
I
why
like
don't you give me a quick shout out for for this new build project that you have in the Hartford area. So obviously, you're the agent on record for it. We're excited about that. You told us about how you did it. But if an agent listening has a client on the East Coast that's thinking about where to make the move, why don't you pitch us? Like, why should they buy in this development?
Oh, this is like honestly, this is a phenomenal. It's the answer, especially if you're in Connecticut, Massachusetts, really anywhere. It's a luxury downtown location in the heart of West Hartford Center that offers walkability to a real downtown where you have all of the amenities of the downtown. You have shopping, fantastic, like fantastic restaurants. Like some of the best restaurants out of New York City, outside New York City, are right here in West Hartford Center. You have access to banking and a post office and library, Whole Foods, shopping. You could live in a downtown like city location right here in West Hartford Center, and the whole town is moving towards walkability. So there's trails and bike paths connecting the entire town. So if you want to be physically moving, not in your car sitting, it's a phenomenal solution. So it's a 58 luxury condo building, new construction, fully amenitied with a pool deck, gym, lounge, kitchen, roof deck with 10-foot ceilings right in the heart, private parking, concierge lobby, right in the heart of West Hartford Center. We are the only option for you in Connecticut that I can think of, actually,
I
that I
love
can
that.
think of. I mean, it's really special. It's really special. So, it's just
And what are the price points starting at in these luxury condos?
what?
What are the price points starting at?
So
What are
the
the
price points are the price points are $1,000 a square foot.
okay?
Yeah, price points are $1,000, and we have almost 30% reserved, and we haven't put a shovel on the ground.
You know,
That's
you
how
can
cool it
compare
is.
that to prices in Manhattan, Boston. It's not bad, and you could probably drive to both of those places pretty quickly.
You're within 2 hours of New York and 2 hours to Boston in West Hartford. You could work in New York and Boston and live in West Hartford. A lot of our buyers are coming out of Boston, coming out of New York. I mean, we're getting buyers from all over the country. Honestly, we get buyers from California, Chicago, Texas, Florida,
Yeah.
Maine, everywhere. My buyers come from they come from overseas. My buyers come from everywhere, but the town of West Hartford is one of the hottest markets in the country for a reason. It's a fantastic place to live.
Well,
Fantastic. It's
if
totally,
anyone wasn't convinced, I'm sure that they
yeah,
are
it is.
now.
Call me because your buyers probably want to take a look at this, and there's only 30 something of them left. So they're not going to
They're
last
back
forever.
now.
Once they're gone, they're gone. It took 7 years to get it approved. There's been no other new construction home ownership condos available in the last 20 years. So once they're gone, they're gone.
Well, Kate, thank you so much for spending time with us today and
Thank you
explaining
for having
why
me.
we should all buy these condos.
Yeah, do
But
you want one?
if
I'm
someone
going
wanted
to
to get a
ask
hold
you.
of
Do you want
you,
to buy one?
yeah, I kind of do at this point.
Yeah.
How would someone get a hold of you if like a realtor listening has a client that wants to buy, or that they have a client they need to refer to you? How would they get a hold of you?
Oh, so I work for Coldwell Banker in West Hartford, and I also work for Coldwell Banker in Newport, Rhode Island. My phone number is 860-729-6813. And you can look me up and send me an email too, kate.diadabo@cbrealty.com. And
I
I'll
love
call
that.
you right back because I call everybody back right away, which is,
If
again, is a very important thing. I
a
won't text
lot of people aren't that,
I
as
won't
we know,
text
a
you.
lot of people
I
aren't
will
doing.
call you. I will call you. Yeah.
I love it. Well, Kate, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you so much for having me. I loved it.